Beta has been out for a few days, but I wanted to take some time to actually kind of react / give my thoughts about the tank tier sets going into the War Within. Now, of course, these are subject to change. I don't necessarily think any of the tier sets will get any touches. They might get some tuning, but I really doubt it because most of them seem pretty standard and they seem pretty boring and simple, at least most of them do. Now that I've actually had some time on the beta to test out most of the tank tier sets, I wanted to take some time and kind of go over my thoughts and how they're working out so far and how they're interacting with each of the classes. So without further ado, let's just dive right into this one. So starting off with Blood, let's look at the 2-piece and the 4-piece together, and then I'll give my thoughts. So first things first, the 2-set bonus reads, while you have 1 or more Bone Shield charges, the damage you take is reduced by 2%. Losing a Bone Shield charge has a chance to reduce the damage you take by an additional 1%, stacking up to 3 for 6 seconds. You're going to notice this pattern with a lot of the different tank tier sets is that while you're maintaining your kind of mitigation, so you're going to see things like Shuffle, Solder, Bone Shield, etc., you're going to naturally take less damage. So you can just assume this will be a flat 2% DR, which sounds very, very small. And then losing a Bone Shield charge has a chance to increase the damage reduction you have provided from the set. But more than likely, this is more catered to Mythic Plus because you don't typically lose Bone Shields as frequently when you're tanking a single target like in Raid. Overall, I think it's fine to have a flat DR, but there isn't really a damage component to this, which you're going to see with a lot of the other tank sets. There is a damage component to it. So a little iffy. Anyways, the 4-set bonus reads, your damage is increased by 1% per active Bone Shield charge. Taking damage while below 6 charges has a chance to generate 1 to 2 Bone Shield charges for you. Now, this is interesting. I think the damage gain from this is fine, though with things like Tombstone as well as Bone Storm being both potential plays for the Blood Death Knight, it begs to question, like, how often does this buff update with the damage increase? And does it snapshot the damage pre-Bone Shield dump? It's also kind of strange because it like not incentivizes you, but it rewards you for like maybe not having more than 5 Bone Shield charges. So what's happening is for the Death Knight, for those who don't play it, you want to generally maintain more than 5 charges because it reduces the cost of like Death Strike and stuff like that. And you're gaining armor, I think, per stack as well. So you want to maintain upwards of 10. There is a new talent, or I guess a reworked talent for the Blood Death Knight, increasing their total stacks that they can have from 10 to 12, which is obviously good. So in this case, it's at the high end, a 12% damage increase. At the low end, it's obviously 0 if you don't have any active. So the tier set works together because it incentivizes you to actually have Bone Shield charges, which you should be doing anyways, or you're really not playing the tank right. And then it's incentivizing or it's rewarding you for not having charges. It's somewhat of like, I guess it helps players who might not be as comfortable or aren't familiar with like when you should be reapplying, but with Dancing Rune Weapon and Marrow Rend, you know, you're instantly generating 9+ charges. So this set seems like you're not getting a lot of value from it because it's rewarding like bad gameplay. I personally would like to see this set reworked, but I think for the Blood Death Knight, they're looking very good going into the first patch. Their tier set's a little on the weaker end in my opinion, but generally speaking, the actual rework itself plus the hero talents look phenomenal. All in all, pretty good set. I've tested it a good bit. I like it. It's just, it's not something you really have to think about. Anyways, let's move on. Next, let's talk about the Demon Hunter. The set for this one also looks phenomenal. It's very Nerubian. It reminds me a lot of like Skyrim sets as well. But anyways, Vengeance Demon Hunters are going to be in for a little bit of like, I don't want to say like rude awakening, but losing your Dragonflight 2 and 4 set bonus is definitely going to hurt you in the Sigil generation, like our cooldown recovery department. This tier set's not bad, but it's definitely a step down from what we're used to, especially since the rework. So in this case, Soul Cleave deals 15% increased damage and has a 35% chance to shatter 1 lesser soul fragment from a target that it hits. In terms of damage, it's a little weird that it's not including Soul Bomb or Spirit Bomb, I should say, as well. It's just your single target damage on Soul Cleave. I had some concerns about this at first, but I'm actually not totally against the way that this works. Essentially, it's more or less of a single target or low target count increase. There might be some builds where we don't play Spirit Bomb, but generally speaking with Fellscarred, which is definitely looking like the Mythic Plus hero talent tree, you have to hit Soul Cleave to benefit from Fellscarred anyways, so it's not a bad thing. The extra Soul Frag generation too isn't bad either. The 4-piece actually reads, consuming a Soul Fragment increases the damage and healing of your next Feldev by 2% up to 30. Again, this is more AoE than anything else. So you're getting Frag Gen from the 2 set, and by consuming these fragments, you're actually going to increase your Feldev by up to 30. The cooldown generally on Feldev, if you do the full channel, is like, what, ballpark 25 seconds? Generally, you're able to consume 15 fragments before it comes off cooldown, meaning that every single Feldev you cast is going to have 30% damage increase on it. So all in all, it's fine. it's boring, and it's definitely not going to provide the same cooldown reduction that we're used to getting on Sigil of Flame from our Dragonflight set. But overall, Demon Hunter feels great, and the Felscarred hero talents are very fun to play with. Next, we have the Guardian Druid. The tier set looks okay, in my opinion. I think the Mohawk helm looks a little weird, but generally speaking, the set in its entirety looks pretty good. Anyways, let's take a look at the Guardian 2 and 4 piece. First, Thrash and Moonfire increase your damage done and reduce the damage you take by 1% for 8 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. You're casting Thrash and Moonfire frequently, that you will pretty much maintain the 3% DR. This isn't anything crazy. You're going to be casting Thrash and generally Moonfire in most cases, but you can cast either or. So if you're playing a more Thrash-centric, physical damage kitty weaving build, you're just going to benefit from Thrash and not so much Moonfire. And if you're playing an Arcane Bear, you're going to, you're thrashing still, but you're also going to be gaining the Moonfire. But it caps at 3, so you're going to get pretty much this almost immediately, and you're going to sit at 3 stacks for pretty much indefinitely until combat ends. Your 4-piece, arcane damage you deal is increased by 5, and bleed damage you deal is increased by 5. Now, this is a weird set because it tries to hit both camps, because I think the hero talents are very, very different. One is like kitty weaving bleed based, and the other one is very like arcane damage Moonfire based. So they're trying to make the set encompass both. I think one will encompass the other more. You're still getting like thrash bleeds and stuff out, where if you're playing a very heavy physical damage build, you might not be getting as much like arcane Moonfire damage. But overall, solid set, good damage increase. It's just really, really bland. Basically, play the class and you get a free damage increase and a little bit of a DR. All right, moving on. Let's talk about Brewmaster. So the Brewmaster set is by far, and maybe I'm a little biased because I'm a Brewmaster main, but is easily one of the best sets. It also looks really good too. It has like this classic mop feel, but it's like a new updated set. Anyways, 2 set reads Blackout Kick and Keg Smash deal 20% additional damage, and Shuffle also grants a 3% damage reduction. So similar to like we've seen with the Blood Death Knight as well as the Guardian Druid, basically playing the game gives you a flat 3% DR, and of course our 2 favorite abilities, Blackout Kick and Keg Smash, are increased by 20%. This feels like it caters a little bit more to the Shado-pan tree, and there's going to be, I'll talk about that probably in a future video, but Keg Smash is starting to deal some massive damage, and it's very fun to play with this set. And it feels even better with the 4 set bonus, which reads Blackout Kick increases your damage dealt by 1% for 15 seconds, stacking up to 3. This should always be maintained at like a 3% flat damage increase for the Brewmaster. And on top of that, Blackout Kick has a chance to reset the cooldown of Keg Smash and make it cost no energy. This is very, very good. You're on average getting resets every 3 casts of Blackout Kick, so once every 12 seconds. You can get back to back, you can high roll it, but generally speaking, every 3. The no energy is just a nice little, flavor. What would happen if it didn't cost energy is we would be energy starved so frequently. We'd actually have to probably stack haste if this wasn't the case, but it is. So we get a free Keg Smash. There's a slight priority system because we don't want to munch procs. So it's important that when you are casting Blackout Kick that you do not have both of your charges available for Keg Smash. You always want at least one on cooldown. If not, you want both, depending on if you're playing Storm Stats last Keg. Overall though, very good set, makes up for a lot of damage, and it makes like things like Shado-pan really pack a punch with the Keg Smash. I'll be going into a deep dive on this set as well as all of the other sets in future videos, but I just wanted to do like a general reaction to all the sets. So let's move on. Next, let's check out Protection Paladin. Now I've heard, mixed feelings about the actual tier set itself. I think the set looks good. The wings look a little cheesy and still. But once you're in the game and they're dynamically moving, the wings actually don't look bad. I think they're pretty cool. But the set looks good. But let's talk about the set bonuses. So we have Shield of the Righteous dealing 10% increased damage and granting a 3% damage reduction. Now, personally, from my testing, I'm not seeing this pop up, so I think it might be a bug. Essentially, though, basically 10% more damage on your spender, so Solder's going to hit even harder than it already does, and you're going to get a flat 3% DR. Pretty good. As of right now, it's not working on the beta from my testing, but I'm sure it will. And then next we have Paladin, the Paladin 4 set, which is casting a Holy Power ability increases the damage and healing you deal during your next Avenging Wrath by 0.5%. Now, I don't know how high this stat can actually go to, The problem I'm also having on beta with the set is that only Word of Glory is currently increasing the damage of the next Avenging Wrath and not Shield of the Righteous, because the set does read casting a holy power ability. So obviously it's almost impossible to test how good the set is, because as of right now, only Word of Glory is actually doing that, and you need to maintain solder uptime, so you're really only using like Shining Light procs, and the buff only lasts for like 8 seconds. It does refresh, but because it only lasts like a short period of time, if you aren't consistently wogging yourself instead of, you know, casting a Shield of the Righteous, it falls off and then you don't get any damage increase on your wings. I don't know if any of you have had this issue, but I was having this issue a ton on beta when I was like hitting training dummies. Anyways, let's move on to the last and final tank set, the Protection Warrior. Now I want to say this, that the set actually looks really good. I love this warrior set, by far one of my favorites. It has like a Wrath of the Lich King vibe, it has like Kata vibes, and it has like that, but it has like the updated version of like Dragonflight Mogs. So very big fan. But anyways, the protection set is pretty cool. When your Shield Slime cooldown is reset by Strategist, you gain Expert Strategist, increasing the damage of Shield Slime by 5% and reducing all damage taken by 3% for 6 seconds. This procs very frequently, so you're generally going to see a flat 3% DR while in combat, as long as you're making sure you're hitting Shield Slam. Your 4 set though is Shield Slam critical strikes increase the damage dealt by Thunderclap and Revenge by 10% for 8 seconds. And this really bakes into both Colossus but really Mountain Thane, and it makes you do some crazy AoE damage with that Thunderclap ability. While it is pretty boring, it does incentivize a little bit more crit stacking. We are getting, you know, good secondary stats from our class tree as well, but overall, warriors are just like not taking damage and they feel very fun to play. In both Colossus with like the Demolish as well as Mountain Thane with their Thunder Bursts or Thunder Blast or whatever it's called, really pack a punch. So overall, good tier sets, little on the boring side. I think Brewmaster is definitely one of my favorites. I think it has a lot more interaction with how the class works. It offers a lot more defensive capabilities, and with the free procs, it just feels a little bit better. With Blood Deathline, I think it's a little counterintuitive the way that it works with having like having lower bone shield charges has a chance to give you free charges. I don't think that's really a great system to have in a game. I think you should be rewarding good gameplay instead of like having like a little fallback, like, oh, you don't have enough charges, so we'll give you one. It's like, I don't agree with that philosophy. And I think the bear one is like a little bit too boring because they had to stretch themselves thin on the hero talents. But overall, I'm pretty good with this. Let me know what you guys think down below. I will be testing a ton of beta going forward. We just got announced today that Mythic Plus testing is going to become available on the 13th. So we're going to be keeping an eye out for that. And once Mythic Plus testing comes out, I am not going to be sleeping at night. Anyways, massive shout out to all my Patreon supporters. Without you guys, I wouldn't be doing content like this. So thank you. I hope you're all staying happy, healthy, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.